The Startup Life is brought to you by Target. No matter if it's household items to make your home more aesthetically pleasing or a 65-inch TV to complete that man cave, Target is the go-to place for high-quality products at an affordable price. Start your Target journey with a link in our show notes. Target. Expect more, pay less. This week on The Startup Life.
But as long as you live off those interest payments, the tax is not due. It's just deferred. We like to say you win when you defer the tax, you lose when you pay it. And most of our clients like to pay the taxes the second day to never.
All right, Startup Nation, so let's take flight with Brett Swarts, founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. The Startup Life begins now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Otis, you crazy mother.
Hey, Startup Nation. Do you enjoy the Startup Life? Now you can let the world know with gear from the show. Choose from the label yourself, make your own look, and Making Money t-shirts to tell your story of your path of entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to purchase. All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're ready to receive some value today. We got a big time guest in the building today. We got Brett Swarts of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. What's going on, boss?
Dominic, everything. I can't wait to be on this show with you guys. And thank you so much for having me and the Startup Nation. I look forward to trying to add some value to everybody.
I hear that. As always, my name is Dominic Lawson. This is the Startup Life Podcast, and it is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. So first things first, Brett, let's hop right into it. Tell us your story and your path to entrepreneurship.
Yes. So I started out in Mission San Jose. It's a Fremont area in California. And, growing up, I was right in the middle of my dad's business. And he was a general contractor, built custom homes in the hills. And if you remember the 1980s, I'm an 80s kid. It was at the MC Hammer days.
Oh,
MC Hammer had this big house up on top of the Mission San Jose hills. And my dad didn't build that house, but he built houses just about a half mile away. And so we would, be in the Bobcat. We'd be shoveling dirt, moving bricks, hammering nails. And his whole he was an entrepreneur himself, and so he would not only build these houses, but then he also had rentals as well,
right?
And cash flow real estate, and so that was my first introduction to being kind of your own boss and kind of creating your own destiny and working really hard and providing a service to others at a fair price, and building long-term relationships with folks as well. And so that was my introduction to that. Moving along, I went into business school, and I studied. I got 2 degrees and a minor, and I was able to take an internship at a company called Marcus & Millichap, which is one of the largest commercial real estate firms in the nation. And I studied how to underwrite a property, how to negotiate a deal, how to sell real estate. And so I started that in college and then graduated and did full-time commercial real estate brokerage, and have been doing that ever since. That was my first introduction to, I guess, being an entrepreneur. And by the way, when you're commercial real estate or real estate professional in general, you're 100% commission, no benefits. You're running your own independent business underneath a firm, right? So it's it's kind of a hybrid in a sense, but it is certainly being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So, look, man, when we talk about the capital gains tax, and stuff like that, man, that's some pretty complex stuff, man. Have you always been one of those people to just kind of tackle those very complex ordeals and stuff like that?
I'm actually more like the tortoise versus the hare.
Okay.
It takes me a while. I was decent in math and good in history and decent in English, and going to college, I didn't know I would be, I guess, a tax specialist in this particular area.
Right.
And really what drove this was my clients in commercial real estate. So we would do what's called a 1031 exchange, where essentially if you sell a property, you can exchange it to a like-kind property and defer the tax. And so I did a lot of those over the years. But during that time period, as any good entrepreneur does, they're looking for ways to add value, and they're also looking for ways to solve problems. And one of the biggest problems with the 1031 exchange was that you have this short window of 45 days to identify and 180 days to close, and it creates a lot of pressure and stress for my clients. And so as I continue to try to serve and win business too, in a very competitive world, we were looking for alternatives to that, and entered the Deferred Sales Trust, which is the focus niche of our company, where essentially it's kind of like the screwdriver versus the hammer. And so it's just another way to learn it and another way to defer tax. And so that's what drove me to this, but really it's the internal motivations that it solved, which drove me to learn the tax law, understand it, and then really try to clarify and make it simple as possible. Because you're right, I'm not an analytical personality by trade. I'm more of an expressive driver, where it's probably where a lot of your entrepreneurs on Startup Nation.
Absolutely, yes.
And so, but I've been disciplined, and I again, back to the tortoise part, I slowly learn a piece of it. I try to clarify and simplify it, and then apply it and help my clients win with capital gains tax.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the tortoise and hare analogy. A lot of times we talk to Startup Nation here on the Startup Life, powered by the Binge Podcast Network. We talk to them about the mentality of the slow growth, because I feel like, me personally, and this is just my own personal business philosophy, I feel like that slow growth is more sustainable than that overnight success type of model. So I appreciate you sharing that.
You're welcome. And you're absolutely right. And the to get where I'm at today has been over really about a 10-year focus on this Deferred Sales Trust, but a 13-year career in commercial real estate. And so it has been a long time. I have my Series 22, my Series 63, which are just fancy ways to say they're like securities license. And so there's been a lot of training, but really just a lot of mentors and just listening and asking questions and being willing to learn. That's, I think, the entrepreneur, if you can do those things, you can be successful given enough time.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So before we dive into, what you do at your business, capital gains tax solutions and stuff like that, I got to ask you something, man, because in my prep, I saw that you played some college ball back in the day. And so you make the distinction as the first person on the Startup Life with an ESPN stats page. So I wanted to know, do you still play at all?
Oh gosh. So I'm a 6-foot white guy, average guy, but I could shoot, So
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's actually my passion is hoops. Growing up, Michael Jordan fan, and then a Sacramento Kings fan during the glory days. And if I could, if my knees and my body hold up, I would play every day. Hoops. I absolutely love the game. I love playing on a team. I play in a couple leagues still. I play in a Sunday night league, and then I play every Saturday morning at 6:30 with a group of guys. But I was fortunate enough, to play in college, in a small NEI school in San Diego, and then to another NEI school in Sacramento called William Jessup University.
Okay.
And shooting guard, point guard combo. But I love sports. Love the opportunity to be able to play, and someday I hope to coach. In the meantime, I'll coach my kids and run the businesses. But that is part of the vision. Eventually, maybe back a college coach or high school coach.
I hear that. Thank you for sharing that. So you was definitely having some fun in the early 2000 days with the Kings, with Weber and Jay Will and all those kids, Mike Bibby and stuff like that, right?
He was honestly the best. So I was in high school, and Robert Horry hit the shot that broke all of our hearts.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't going to bring any of that up, so I wanted to have a great conversation. So I appreciate you sharing all that. For sure.
We don't forget that one.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. What did you learn from the worst boss, teacher, mentor, or coach you ever had?
Great question. The worst boss, coach, mentor, teacher I ever had. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. So at the time, I would say it was my high school basketball coach. Not that he was the worst. I think he rode me the hardest, Growing up, my parents were divorced when I was young. And so my mom and grandma were kind of like mom and dad, although I'd go back to the Bay Area and spend the summers working hard with my dad. And he's still good. He was a good dad. Just they were separated. We just didn't see him as much. So, so hoops and actually football in high school provided an opportunity to have mentors and coaches that were kind of like father figures. But in particular, my high school basketball coach, he was a scary guy. He would yell and scream like a drill sergeant. And particularly, I think I needed a little bit more as a good Startup Nation might be able to relate with. And in high school and you're always looking for a way, especially junior high school days when you're a little bit immature, you're looking for a way to do things the simplest, least amount of energy, efficient ways, and still get, A's and B's the best you could, right? So school was never my highest priority or really focus. I just wanted to enough to get by. But hoops really was. And I think coach really saw that, independent spirit, right? So he made sure to instill in me discipline and listening, right? I guess is really what it comes down to. So he was tough. And at the time I didn't like it. In fact, I was MVP of my sophomore year of basketball, averaging about 20 points a game. Okay. Then I went to varsity and we had a really good team, but I sat the bench and played some my junior year. And then it was finally my senior year. And by the way, my junior year, we went to the quarter or semifinals of the state. So we're really good. We beat Crenshaw that year, who were number five in the state. And we would have played Tyson Chandler's team in the championship, but he lost in the semifinals. We were really good. So it was okay. I had some seniors ahead of me. But my senior year, I was ready to start. I was ready to go. Like, this is going to be my year. Right. And right before season started, he says, Brett, you're going to sit the bench. I mean, you're next to the bench. You're going to come off the bench. Right. You're going to be in there at the end of the game, but you're going to come off the bench because you're our number 2 scorer. And we have our MVP of the league, who was the number 1. So that was tons of adversity. I had to swallow my pride. I had to be humble. I really hated it at the time, and I was angry at him. But looking back, it helped me become the person I was really supposed to be, more like the tortoise. Like, I'm going to make a way, figure it out, get better. And I was one of only 2 to go on that senior year team to actually play in college and get a scholarship. And it helped me just become better and not take anything for granted.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that tortoise or that grinder, if you will. I can definitely appreciate that for sure. So, Brett, let's get right into it, man. So explain to Startup Nation what the capital gains tax is and who are those individuals that it normally applies to.
Yeah. So most business professionals or business owners, entrepreneurs, when they go to sell their highly appreciated business, they struggle with capital gains tax. And it's somewhere between 33 and 50% of their gain is going to be wiped out. Wow. And it's something that oftentimes they don't focus on or know about until they're in escrow ready to sell. And by then it may be too late. And so we use a deferred sales trust. That's the tool to give them tax deferral, liquidity, diversification. And this is the big one: freedom to fund their next business venture, all tax deferred.
I hear that.
Okay? And so that they can create and preserve more wealth, and so that they can have more freedom to do more. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit.
For sure.
So I'll just give you a live example. We just closed a deal just 2 weeks ago. It was in Sacramento. It was a gentleman who was actually selling a piece of real estate in a very tough location. And this, again, applies to businesses as well. But he was selling his business, and what he wanted to do is just to be done with the toilets, trash, and liability. For an entrepreneur, it might be, hey, I just want to be done with the employees, or I want to be done with this particular part of my business venture. I want to go into something else.
Right.
But they're not sure how to get out of the day-to-day grind, and they're not sure how to exit and sell the business without getting wiped out. Literally, sometimes it's up to 50% of their gain. So this gentleman, he had bought properties years ago and done 1031 exchanges, but his basis was somewhere around $500,000. So the first thing for Startup Nation you want to understand is, what is your basis? And most of the entrepreneurs we work with are actually a pretty low basis. They started, in the basement of their place, and they've grown and they put some money into the business, but oftentimes it's not very much. And then they depreciate every year part of that business. And so most of the businesses we work with are at a zero basis.
Gotcha.
When they go to sell, they're going to get hit again with a gain. And a gain is what they sell for minus the basis. So let's just say your basis is 0 And we'll use back to this gentleman who was selling a $1.8 million deal. His basis was $500,000, but let's just say it was zero. At $1.8 million on a sales price, he was looking at somewhere around 40% being wiped out. So $1.8 million by 40% is $720,000. And so unless you do a tax deferral plan or have some plan for that, that's the check you're going to write to the state and federal government. And that's their cut. They're your partner too, if you didn't already know that.
Right.
They want a big cut. Whereas this deferred sales trust, we can actually take the funds at close, all of the funds, and move it into this trust, and then you can live off the interest. And where is the funds held? They're held at some of the largest banks in the world, and Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, and they earn interest based upon what they're invested in: stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But the biggest thing is you live off the interest, and it's passive, it's diversified. And then you can direct the funds back into a business venture, up to 80% of the funds. So let's say it's Dominic's deal. There's $1.8 million sitting there. He says, great, I took a break. You traveled the world for a little while. You did the things you always wanted to do. But then all of a sudden that entrepreneur itch starts to catch up again. You find a good idea and you're like, you know what, I'm going to go start another business, which generally happens within, I'd say 12 months of people, who retire early as an entrepreneur. And then you can direct the funds, which is great, to that next business venture, brand new LLC, and you just partner with your trust, and it's all tax deferred. So I'm going to pause there because I just said a lot.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate all of that. Now, when you say tax deferred, is there like a certain window to where eventually you do have to pay that tax? Like when does it come to a point where that balance, you're going to get that bill from the tax man?
Great question. Mm-hmm. So the tax is always owed. It's just not due, right?
Gotcha.
So it's only due when you receive the principal balance. So most of our notes, they go for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And at the end of 10 years, you can renew for another 10. And at the end of that 10 years, you can renew for another 10. And then you can also pass it on to your kids as well. So let's just say it's Dominic's deal.
Absolutely.
There's $1.8 million sitting in there. Mm-hmm. 9 years, 6 months, I'm going to call you, Dominic, and say, hey, Dominic, we have this $1.8 million that you've been living off of the 6.5% interest for the last 9.5 years. There's a balloon payment coming due at 10 years. Do you want to renew, or do you want to just pay the tax? And so you can decide at that point, hey, I'm going to pay the tax, okay? Or you can say, I'm going to renew. Great. And we continue on for the next 10 years the same way. So it's very flexible. And it's really customizable based upon your needs. We can also make the notes for shorter periods of time as well.
Appreciate all of that. I just wanted to make sure, because like I said, when we hear deferred, a lot of people who are used to the word defer or deferment and stuff like that, usually like with student loans and stuff like that. So that you don't have to pay it now. It is but eventually you have to pay it due. So I'm glad you pointed that out, that you can renew it and stuff like that. So I appreciate that.
Oh, by the way, that's a great point. Okay. This is like a zero interest loan from the government. So the government's saying, Dominic, you owe us that $720,000, but we're going to give you that $720 as a loan.
Got you.
At zero interest payment. And you can have that loan for as long as for 10 years. You can have it for 10 years, and every 10 years you can renew. And the idea is as long as you invest it in a business or commercial real estate or stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and you live off the interest payments. And by the way, the interest payments you're going to pay ordinary income on, right? You can't get out of that. But as long as you live off those interest payments, the tax is not due. It's just deferred. And so we like to say, or we have a saying around here, that you win when you defer the tax, you lose when you pay it. And most of our clients like to pay the taxes the second day to never. So they're just going to keep it in a deferral state and continue to live off the passive income, or direct it to a new business or new deal and live off that cash flow.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. So, if I'm a business owner and I'm thinking about, doing some type of deferment, how do I know if the 1031 exchange or the deferred sales trust is best for me?
Yeah. So as a business owner, and I meet with business brokers all over, and I do presentations, and first question I ask them, in fact, I have a talk here on Thursday in Walnut Creek with some business brokers. The first question I ask them is, have you guys ever done a business 1031 exchange? And majority say no. And the reason is because it has to be like kind in a short period of time. Okay. So really, as a business owner, it just doesn't happen. In real estate, it's much more available, and you can do that. And we help people do that too. I'm a commercial real estate broker by trade, and that's I still do 1031 exchanges.
Okay.
So that's where we think that actually business owners are probably the number one value add prospect for the deferred sales trust, because they really don't have a solid tax deferral plan that can provide the flexibility, the liquidity, and the ability to direct the funds back into a new business like the deferred sales trust. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I hope it does.
No, I get that, because I was looking at the webinar that you were nice enough to kind of send forward in the prep and stuff like that. And I was looking at those two different types of things. And so, everybody's, tax situation or financial or business situation is different. So I guess I just wanted to see what that would look like for the entrepreneur who's thinking about like selling their business and trying to figure out, which is the best route to go. So I know I appreciate that. So let me ask you this, because Brett, I was listening to, you was on an NAI podcast, and you was talking about, the deferred sales trust. And you said that you have to do a lot of education on, what it is and, if it's legal as opposed to a straight sale, certain assets and stuff like that. So Brett, in my experience, like when you have to do a lot of educating to the public, it seems like either A, it's like brand new, or it's like there's some sense of like you got to gain trust that needs to be had. So what's going on there? Is it like people are kind of leery of deferred sales trust?
Great question. Yeah. And so this is probably the number one question that we get. And also it's number one question you and your listeners should be asking, right? So if anyone ever brings you a brand new tax deferral strategy, there's kind of the top 5 questions you should ask. The first one is, how long have you guys been doing this, right? Like, is this something new that you're just going to try out with us? And the answer is 23 years. Okay. The next question you should ask is, well, what's the tax code that this is actually tied to? And the answer is IRC 453. And that tax code goes back to the 1920s. And your CPA knows it, it's just a seller carryback. So your entrepreneurs or business owners may know a traditional installment sale. And in that, you could say Dominic's going to sell his $2 million business, and you have a business buyer ready to buy it, and you own it free and clear. Dominic, you could become the bank, and you could carry back a note, and you could say, you know what, give me $500,000 down. Let me carry a note for $1.5 million. In that scenario, you've received $500,000, and we call that actual receipt. And so since you received that $500,000, that tax is due in that given year, right?
Right.
Which will probably be about 40% of that, depending on what state you're in. Now, however, if that same buyer said, Dominic, I'm going to give you a 0 down payment, would you carry a note for $2 million?
Got you.
In that scenario, you receive 0, Dominic, right? So if you've received 0, you don't owe that money in that year because you received 0, right? But now that $2 million is in a deferral state. So that is IRC 453. It's an installment sale, and that's the foundation of our structure.
Okay.
The trust is just a made-up name. And so you're not going to find that in the tax plan. But the next question you should ask is this: how many IRS audits have you guys survived?
That's an important one.
Yeah, that's the most important one, right? Because what happens if Dominic closes his deal and the IRS comes to us and says, what are you doing, Dominic? You want to know that the brain surgeon has done the brain surgeries in the past and none of them have failed, right?
Absolutely.
And so the answer is 14. So 14 no change audits. The largest audit was for over $120 million business sale. Okay. A recent deal was a car dealership of $80 million. There was actually a deal in, I think it was New Jersey, and that one was multiple offices. They were real estate offices. So the guy was running his multiple franchises, and that was over a $20 million sale as well. So we have not only clients who have closed it that you can talk with, but then we have the IRS audits that were all no change audits, not one single issue with any of the audits. Okay, so that means they're all closed out. On top of that, we've had FINRA review it. Okay. We have national law firms. Okay. We have we also have audit defense. So all that being said, what happens if you actually get audited? Okay. Well, we have audit defense built into the fee structure, meaning at no additional charge, the tax attorneys will defend you. And so, so those are the legal parts of it. Also, by the way, we don't charge anything unless the client, you guys do the deal. So we'll do all the education, all the prep work, get everything prepared. And then only if and when you close the deal do you pay us.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that was the part that I really wanted to get over the Startup Nation, that like, you know, a lot of times when people hear new stuff like tax deferred and stuff like that, and you hear audit and stuff like that, it's almost like the boogeyman, right? So I kind of wanted to have you kind of like, you know, kind of hit the boogeyman in the face a little bit and kind of, you know, release the wizard from behind the curtain a little bit. So I appreciate all of that for sure.
Absolutely. And to that point, if I can add one more thing.
No, absolutely.
Go ahead. Closed over 2,000 trusts, right, in the 23 years. And realize that the IRS and the government, they give these tax holes, and they're actually legitimate loopholes to incentivize business owners to sell their business, to incentivize the money to flow in the economy, right? So these are just tools that everyone has the same rules. The question is, do you have the advisors and do you have the people around you educating you so you understand it and be able to use the tool? And the flip side of that would be a lot of people wouldn't sell their business, right? They wouldn't expand. They wouldn't grow another business. They wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't move from where they're at because of the taxes. So the IRS actually does win because they get the new property taxes, the new business taxes. They get the escrow fees. They get taxes from a lot of other places rather than just from yours. And oh, by the way, your money that's still invested goes back into the economy, which spurs even more. We call it macroeconomics. It spurs even more commerce, right? So it's not the boogeyman. It does sound too good to be true, but it's really not. It's just a tool that we use, and we use it every day.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask a quick follow-up question, if I may, because the thing is, we know baby boomers are retiring, right? And so we've been talking about this massive, you know, wealth transfer. And so a lot of like millennials and Generation X will be inheriting some of these businesses and stuff like that. So if something is in that deferred sales trust and they need to inherit, you know, and they want to pass that along to the next person, what does that process look like? And you know, is there an issue to where that person has to pay a little bit of tax, you know, if they're the one inheriting? Take us through that process a little bit.
Great question. Yeah. So according to the American Bankers Association, Dominic, there's about $17 trillion that will pass from one generation to the next in the next 20 years. And this is the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet that we know of. Each day, there's about 10,000 baby boomers turning 65, and there's about 77 million in the U.S. alone. And so these are our parents who have built up their companies, their businesses, their real estate, their portfolios of wealth. And they're figuring out, how do we pass it to the next generation without getting wiped out? And also by 33 to 50% of their gain. And also, how do they actually retire from this, right? How do they retire? Or even the ones that are ultra high net worth, right? Who are worth more than 22 million and they're married, you have what's called the death tax or the estate tax. So let's just give an example. Let's say you have a listener who's worth $52 million and they're married. The first $22 million would be exempt. The next $30 million left over, what's going to be subject to an estate tax or death tax, meaning if that passes inside the taxable estate to their kids are going to pay 40% on that $30 million. So let's do that number. What's 30 million? 30 million by 40%. Okay, that's $12 million. What can happen though beyond that is it could be a legacy business that they actually want to pass on to their kids. But what can happen is, because their kids inherit the business and they owe the tax, they're now forced to sell the business, okay, to pay the $12 million tax.
Right.
So this is a big challenge that these baby boomers are facing, and also any listeners who have parents and they're planning on inheriting their business, of how do we navigate it? The beautiful part about the Deferred Sales Trust is it solves this challenge. And it solves it by moving the funds outside of the taxable estate upon the sale of a business, commercial real estate. By the way, this works for high-end primary homes. It works for collectibles, artwork, anything you can think of. We probably have done it. You can do this for. But at close of escrow, you can move the funds outside the taxable estate, which can save the kids, on this scenario, $12 million in estate tax. Mm-hmm. But better than that, you can go and fund a new business venture, right, and not have to worry about that challenge. So everyone has a unique circumstance, and the key is when they meet with us and talk with us, we're kind of like a doctor, and we just say, okay, tell me your symptoms and tell me your challenges, and let's see which tool is going to fit best for you, and then let's create that plan, and now let's execute that plan. So I hope that answers the question.
No, that definitely answers my question. I appreciate that. But I actually want to go back to something you said earlier, because I actually had a question, and you kind of alluded to a little bit. So I'm going to kind of change it a little bit. So you were talking about how, you have the Deferred Sales Trust, right? And I was curious about something about, like, if you have so many people who are to use this vehicle, like business owners, right? And so, obviously governments depend on tax revenue to fund different things, right? So I was curious if, like, if you have so many people using this vehicle, doesn't that kind of hurt like a growing economy? But you kind of said that, on the flip side, that those businesses are able to do more commerce, which helps on a more micro level, if you will. So I appreciate you sharing that part as well, because it's one of the things I was going to ask you about today for sure.
Yeah. So the key is business purpose, and also are the funds being invested for business purpose, right? So that's where the IRS is. This is what's going to hold the structure together. If you were to sell your company, let's say for $2 million, Dominic, and put all the money underneath your mattress, right? That doesn't do anything for anybody, right? You feel safe.
Right.
But if you can give it to a bank, or you can put it to a stock in a company, a Facebook, a Twitter, or a Home Depot, whatever, right? They can actually hire more people, and they can actually expand their business and provide more jobs. So it's the study of macroeconomics and keeping the money flowing like water. The government really wants it to flow and to grow the economy. So these are just the loopholes or tools. And loopholes gets the kind of a bad name, but it's really a way to incentivize the money to continue to flow freely throughout the economy.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So Startup Nation, I know that was a lot to chew on, and so we're going to kind of soften it up a little bit. Last question before we go to break, man. So entrepreneurs are always considered, lifelong learners, always engaged in professional development. What are you learning right now, Brett?
Yeah, good question. So, I'll start with a quote and then I'll apply it. So it's a quote by Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, and he says, "Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job."
I hear that.
And if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. But if you work harder on yourself, you'll make a fortune. And the idea here is not just to make a bunch of money, although that's a part of it. The idea is to grow as an individual. Those are 5 areas that I'm trying to learn every day of how. Basically, it's an ongoing active thing of learning how to do these things, right? It's not just you learn it once and it's there. Meaning, your health, your finances, your spiritual walk, your family, your friends, your leadership, personal development. So I'm in a season of life. He also wrote a book, and it's on the 4 seasons of the summer, the fall, the winter, and the spring. And we all go through different seasons. And right now I have 5 kids, and I don't know if you believe it, but I'm 35, going on 36 here in a couple of days. And I have 5 kids. And so I'm in a season of intense, and they're pretty young too. So between the ages of 9 months and 8.5.
Absolutely.
And so I'm in a season of just learning how to rest well and preserve my energy rather than just my time management, right? I'm really having to be wise about how and where I spend my time as it relates to how it's going to deplete my energy, because the kids don't stop. The kids just keep growing, and they get, like I said, they get bolder and bolder every day. And it's the best. It's 100% work, 100% joy. And my wife's the rock star, stay-at-home mom, and I'm out as the entrepreneur trying to grow these businesses. Mm-hmm. But right now, it's just the difference between managing time and managing energy would be the one I'm focused on right now.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. How you like being on the Startup Life so far?
Awesome. I love it.
All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're getting great value from Brett's content, but we got to pay a few bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson. This is the Startup Life Podcast, and it is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. Startup Nation, Kenda and I, along with our daughter Zoe, have this thing called Target Fridays if she's had a good week at school. We stop by the snack bar for popcorn and mermaid ices. Startup Nation, don't judge me until you've tried them. Those ices are really good. Anyways, we then head over to the toy section so my daughter can add to her LOL doll collection. My daughter is a pretty good student, so you can imagine that we have spent a small fortune on LOL dolls. However, I can take solace in the fact that Target makes it affordable to buy those LOL dolls and anything else we need as a family. That's because Target believes you deserve quality at an affordable price. And when you're entrepreneurs like us, that's extremely important. But great deals and quality products are not exclusive to the brick and mortar version of the retail store. Target.com has even more exclusive deals that you can appreciate. And when you spend over $35, shipping is free. And I know we all love free shipping. We love to purchase the amazing kids clothes for Zoe from the exclusive to Target Cat and Jack line when we go online. So the next time you listen to the show and you are reminded that you need something for your home, start your Target journey with the link in our show notes, where you can expect more and pay less.
All right, Startup Nation, so let's continue. So, Brett, if you would, please, sir, tell us about everything that, Capital Gains Tax Solutions does. You mentioned the audit defense earlier, and just tell us some of the other services and stuff you provide there.
Absolutely. So the first thing is just education. And our goal is just to equip each business owner with this tool, right? And so once they have the tool, they can use it how they think is best, right? And which is creating, preserving more wealth. And the big thing is the internal motivation for most of our business owners who sell and use our services, which is creating a passive income stream. And so what we want to do is we want to coach you through that and help you through that, right? And what does that mean? Well, that means stocks, bonds, mutual fund, passive income stream. But it also means commercial real estate. A lot of our business owners own commercial real estate or vice versa. And in fact, the top 3% of wealth in America owns commercial real estate. And so how are you going to move from one to the other? And how are you going to create a passive income stream? The answer is the Deferred Sales Trust. You can sell your high-end primary home, commercial real estate, or business. And then once the funds are in the trust, they can be directed back to commercial real estate or back to a business, or they can just be in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. So that's the first thing we really want to just do is just educate on the tool. And then once you have the tool, then we help you to formulate your plan of how to execute that. And that could mean working with one of our strategic partners, we have business brokers, financial advisors, escrow companies. There's actually 1,100 professionals across the U.S. now that are all educated, and as a way to provide the Deferred Sales Trust. So my role is actually as a trustee. So beyond the education is where we start, but we don't get paid for the education. We get paid for the trustee services when the deal closes.
Gotcha.
So we can talk about fees too if you want to jump into that. That's oftentimes a question, I think, for the listeners. But essentially, education and a consultant along the way, and then trustee services.
Yeah, my next question actually is going to dive into that just a little bit, and you can add that part. But I want to ask a quick follow-up because you talked about, and I remember in my prep, that you said you had to be a third-party trustee in order to do these sort of deals, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And so in order to maintain the integrity of the trust.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask. Like, what does that certification process look like and stuff like that?
Oh, sure. Great question. So as far as certification or licenses, there's no like trustee licenses or certification like you might find with like a commercial real estate broker or a business broker or financial advisor. So it's not something that's highly regulated. For sure. Although I guess the other question for that is, where are the funds held and how do I know they're protected? How do I know the trustee can't take the funds? And Absolutely. The answer is they're held with financial advisors, just like they would be if you paid the tax and walked into the to their office and said, "Hey, manage the funds." Meaning the funds only ever move with the client's signature, and there's protections in place that the trustee can't take the funds. But as far as so, hopefully that answers the question there.
No, it does. No, it definitely does. Because the thing is, like, a lot of times when people are weary of stuff and stuff like that, they want to know who is it regulated by, what kind of license. Kind of like you were saying, like, like doctors and stuff, right? Like, I want to know how many brain surgeries you've done in the past. Like, where did you get your medical degree and all this other stuff, right? So it's just kind of like, like I said, I'm trying to help in the process of like, get rid of the boogeyman, if you will, because like I said,
that's a good question. So the tax attorney, they're out of Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
And they're CPA firm and tax attorney firm by trade. And so they're actually the creators of the structure. They're actually the brain surgeons. So my role and now that I'm hearing your question, I can answer it probably better here. So my role is like the nurse. So Dominic comes to me and I say, Dominic, I'm about to sell my business. And I'm like the nurse before you see the brain surgeon. Like, you don't walk into the brain surgeon's office to get an intake. Right. You intake with the nurse, and the nurse says, Dominic, let me take your pulse.
Preps you and all that great stuff, right?
Yeah, prep, but even says, you don't need surgery, right? You're good. You're good. Just pay the tax, or here's a different solution for you. And so that's kind of my role. But before you get surgery, Dominic, what I say is, hey, talk to your CPA, who's a brain surgeon, and have him talk to the Deferred Sales Trust brain surgeons before you get surgery, because we want to make sure it's a good fit. So we actually encourage anyone who's new to this, which probably the majority of your listeners are, to bring in their own trusted advisors and get on a call with us, with the tax attorneys. We are not the tax attorney. We're the trustee. There's actually, we call it the separation of powers. We have the trustee law firm. We have the actual trustee firm. Mm-hmm. So we have the Deferred Sales Trust law firm. We have the trustee firm, which is my company. And then we have a third-party financial advisor. They're all separate. And in fact, each one can't be each other. So they all have to be separate. But they all serve the role to maintain the integrity of the trust, which I think goes back to your initial question.
Absolutely. Because I definitely glad, I hate to cut you off really quick, but I'm glad you pointed that out, that like kind of try control, because it's almost kind of like you have like multiple layers of accountability, if you will. And I think that stuff like that is what really puts people at ease. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
100%. And also, too, each trust is an individual trust, meaning it only does business with the one person. So if it's Dominic's Deferred Sales Trust, it's a single entity that only does business with Dominic. It doesn't pool money together, and therefore you're not at risk of commingling is a good term for it.
Absolutely.
But back to the integrity of the trust. So one of the things that the IRS wants to look for is what's called business purpose, meaning that the trustee is in this for business purpose. And I make a fee, and I can also make a profit at the very end, a small profit of the trust. And for that means it's not like a sham business. So the other part of it is it needs to be what's called kind of like non-constructive receipt, meaning it's a third party that's unrelated to you, okay, personally. So it can't be, an uncle, a cousin, a niece, a nephew. It has to be third party unrelated trustee. And so that's the position that I provide. So hopefully that makes sense. So long as you have those two things in place, and then you follow, you receive a 1099 interest income, and you file that, and then the trust actually files a tax return. We actually have a very low audit risk. It's not a big audit trigger. Gotcha. And so it's, but yeah, it just works. We like to say we've already blazed the trail. Now it's about educating people about it and how to use it. Part of why it's not so widespread is this is kind of in a way, the biggest mass marketing we do, in a sense.
Fair enough.
We don't spread it out to just anybody, because it is a specialized transaction. Absolutely. And we although most attorneys would probably do fine with it, our attorneys don't want competition, but they also don't want somebody to make a mistake, right? Absolutely. And even though 9 out of 10 would do okay, if that one person presses the limits and makes a mistake on any of these, the structure can fail, and then we have a failed IRS audit, and then they could take it away, and we don't want to do that.
And I imagine it makes the entire industry look kind of bad as well when that happens as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Exactly. And our attorneys are batting 1,000 right now, right? Absolutely. They have not missed 23 years and not one single issue. They stand behind their work. It's they're really unique, smart individuals.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing all of that. So I kind of want to dive into what that process looked like a step-by-step process. So let's say I have a business. I have a basis about $10,000. And so I've grown that business to about 3.5 million, by the way. Right. But I'm looking at this capital gain. So it's like, oh man, like 45%, 40%. I don't want to get hit with that. So, obviously, I come across your business and I dial that 916-886-2986 and started mentioning, if you haven't kind of picked up on that, that is the number to Capital Gains Tax Solutions, by the way, and also capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. The link is there in the show notes for easy access. So, Brett, I call that number, right? And so from there, what does the step-by-step process look like?
Yes. So from there, we're going to say, Dominic, we want you to watch this no-cost free webinar to get educated, right? And that's about a 45-minute to an hour.
And also talk about those fees and stuff when it gets to that point as well, by the way.
Yeah. We'll walk through the fees there at there. And also, by the way, we have our website, the frequently asked questions at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can go there and it's the top 25 asked questions. So it includes what are our fees? How do we know it's legal? Basically anything you can think of. How do I know the funds are protected? How long does a note last? Like all of those, we try to be as transparent as possible. And we recognize that most entrepreneurs want to learn this themselves. And the last thing we want to do is sell. We like to take Steve Jobs' take, and he says, hey, he walked into every one of his retail stores, and he told these individuals, he says, I never want you to sell. I only want you to educate. And so we try to really emulate that same step. And you walk into an Apple store and you don't feel like you're being sold to. You really truly, it's a different culture, right? It's a different feel.
It's not a really quick Startup Nation. I hope you caught that, and that's something you can definitely learn, take in your business. Don't focus on selling, focus on educating, because I think that's how you have a more empowered, more informed customer base. But go ahead, Brett. I just want to
and on top of that, storybrand.com, if they haven't already found that out as far as marketing, your customer is the hero. Your entrepreneurs right now, they're the hero. I'm just the guide. And so back to the nurse analogy, right?
Sure.
We're just going to say, hey, I might be able to guide you here. You're really smart. I'll teach you a few things on this capital gains tax deferral thing, but let me just educate you on the tool. But as soon as you have that tool, as soon as you have that shiny iPhone in your hand and you're moving around those apps and you go, oh my gosh, I can save 37 to 50%. Oh, I can get passive on commercial real estate or a business. Wow. Okay. Now I got it. Okay, great. Now you run with it, right? So the first thing is always education. Okay. And we're going to point them to watch that webinar. From that point, if they actually have a live deal or they're thinking about, hey, I think I'm going to sell, they can go to our DST calculator. We have a link on our website too. And they answer 12 questions, kind of what you said. Hey, what's your basis? What's your loan on the business? What do you think the fair market value is? How do you own it? Is it an LLC? Is it a partnership? How do you own it, right? And so you answer those 12 questions. It's going to give a side-by-side comparison of pay the tax versus do the deferred sales trust. Okay. At that point, you say, you know what, Brett? I'm selling this $3.5 million deal. It's about in that scenario, we'll just do the numbers here, minus the $10,000 basis, right? That's going to put you at 3.49 is the gain. We'll just use 40% as a rough number. You're looking at $1.4 million in tax. So we're going to say, Dominic, that's a big number, and we think it's a good candidate. By the way, if the number were only $100,000 in liability or less, we would say, don't worry, just pay the tax. Our fees are going to be too expensive.
Fair enough.
Basically, $100,000 is kind of our bottom floor or more in tax liability, the actual check you write to the government. And the second criteria is $500,000 in proceeds to actually go into the trust.
Gotcha.
So in this scenario, you're above $500,000 in proceeds. You're also above $100,000 in capital gains tax. So the ratios make sense. So we would say, great. Let's schedule a no-cost call with the tax attorney, with Capital Gains Tax Solutions, with financial advisor, with whoever you want to bring onto the call, your CPA, whoever, right? And let's all have a discussion, and let's try to dissect to see if surgery is going to be good for you.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And you also have a calculator on your website, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So you go there and click on the link, and then that'll send you to a calculator link that'll do that. Yep.
I love that. Always providing opportunities to educate. So I definitely appreciate that for sure. And Startup Nation, once again, like I said, I know this episode has a lot of tax jargon and stuff like that, maybe that you're not familiar with, but don't be afraid of it. Okay. Like I said, we really wanted to have Brett come on the show to kind of help you really understand the capital gains tax and ways to kind of defer it and stuff like that to your advantage so you can grow your business. And Brett, you've done an amazing job at that, man. And I really appreciate that for sure.
You're welcome. Can I add a thing too about partnerships for some of your listeners here?
Please do.
Okay. So a lot of our business owners, some of them are in partnerships, right? And one of the challenges is, how do you get out and sever the relationship in a fair way, equitable way, but also in a tax deferral way, right? So most people don't think about that. So the beautiful thing about the Deferred Sales Trust is they can create two separate deferred sales trusts. So call it, let's say Brett and Dominic were partners. Dominic's Deferred Sales Trust is completely separate, and Brett's Deferred Sales Trust. So at close of escrow, if this was the $3.5 million sale, divide that by 2, right? Half of the $3.5 million would go to Dominic's Deferred Sales Trust. The other half would go to Brett, or, if we were 50-50 partners. And therefore, we're completely severed, which is a beautiful thing, right? Both tax deferred. And better than that, we have an extra 40% in our own individual net worth that we can give to our communities. We can invest back into commercial real estate or a business, and it just makes for a clean exit. It's kind of like when everyone's winning, it's easier to get deals done, right? And this is the concept. When you have an extra 40% of proceeds at the close, you feel like you're all winning more, and it's just much easier to close the deal. And you also don't have to be as aggressive on your investments because you have an extra 40%. So you can be more conservative in your allocations too.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, Brett, you said you wanted to kind of add some more value there. Go ahead and give it to us, man.
Yeah, let me give you one more. I know this is a lot to digest, but listen to this one too. So I know Mr. Dominic is from Tennessee, and there's a gentleman in Tennessee that he may have heard of. His name is Dave Ramsey.
Absolutely.
And Dave Ramsey actually is he's all about the debt-free and also helping entrepreneurs grow their business too. So I'm a part of their entrepreneur leadership team, not their team, but I'm a member of their program there. But more than that, I was part of his debt-free screen when my wife and I were younger. We paid off a bunch of debt when we first started out in our marriage about 10 years ago.
Awesome.
And so I'm bringing this to a circle here. The Deferred Sales Trust, we like to say, is the Dave Ramsey debt-free plan for business owners.
I hear that.
So let's walk through that. Let's say Dominic had a $5 million sale and a $3.5 million debt. Okay. He can sell, and at close of escrow, he's going to eliminate all the debt, and the proceeds are going to go into the trust. Okay. And so he becomes debt-free on his business, just the proceeds. Or even a piece of real estate, a commercial real estate. It's the same thing. A commercial real estate, we're going to sell, we're going to get debt-free. Now, why does that make sense? Well, it makes sense because the economy is really hot right now. Prices are really high. Business values are higher probably than they were a couple of years ago, and it could be a great time for you to sell. And so you can call it the Dave Ramsey debt-free for your business, commercial real estate. Sell, move into the trust, get debt-free, get passive, get diversified, and put it in a conservative portfolio so your powder's dry. So when the market shifts, maybe you can buy a business at a discount. Maybe you can partner with someone else's business, by the way. It doesn't have to be your own business. You can put $100,000 to this business venture over here, another $200,000 to a business venture over here. You can diversify outside of just yourself and doing all the stuff yourself, and that's also, you kind of become a venture capitalist in that sense with your Deferred Sales Trust.
We got you. Appreciate you sharing all of that for sure. Appreciate that, Brett. So let me ask you this, man, because in my prep, I saw a picture of your beautiful family, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
So I want to ask about them a little bit. So look, what you do, as far as with Deferred Sales Trust and stuff like that, it's not something that easily rolls off the tongue. So I know you say you have a 8.5-year-old, correct?
I do.
Okay, so if I was to ask your 8.5-year-old, what does daddy do for work? What would she tell me in her own words?
Yeah, her name is Ava. What would she say?
Ava.
She would say, he talks to a lot of people. Okay. He travels a bit, I've taken her on a few trips. And he encourages other people, you know what I mean? Hopefully that's what I'm doing for your listeners.
Absolutely.
Is encouraging and empowering you guys to be the heroes and use this tool to leverage being more of the entrepreneur you want to be.
For sure. Speaking of entrepreneurship, let me ask you this. Your wife, Melanie, what has she taught you about being a better entrepreneur?
Oh man. So that starts with, she's the rock star of the family and she holds down, the girls. So that's back to the leadership and personal development and character. So, marriage and family are the two gifts God gives us that are, I think, are the best gifts that we can ever have. And so, we got married 10 years ago. We knew each other since high school, and we dated, and then we were really good friends, and then we got married. And so she's like my best friend. She's my best friend, and she's like, my soulmate, right? So I just feel she's opposite personality, like the personality, she's more of the amiable introvert, right? And I'm the expressive driver, extrovert.
Gotcha.
So just how do I guess listen and have empathy for people, right? My personality tends to just go, right? And produce and action and truly slow down and try to listen and care and share that, right? Share those feelings and connect with people beyond just the transaction. It's about who they are and how you can help them and how you can connect with them beyond just the deal.
That deeper connection. Absolutely. I appreciate that. So let me ask you this, because I also saw in my prep that, you actually contributed to a friend's campaign whose parents lost their home in the California wildfire not too long ago. And then I also saw that a few years ago, you participated in the Ice Bucket Challenge, bringing awareness to ALS and stuff like that. So I want to ask you, how important is engaging in philanthropy for you?
So I'm a Christian, so it's about everything I'm about,
Absolutely.
So I believe we've been given different gifts in this world and the ability to give back and serve others. And when we do that, we call it unleashing compassion. We really are the best of who we were created to be. And so, we try to give back as much as we can by our time and efforts. I've done Mexico mission trips where we help build homes for families who don't have homes. And
I hear that.
Went to the Philippines actually for basketball. It was one of the best trips ever. And so we went and played and did inner city camps for kids, basketball camps. And any way we can give back and serve and help others. That's really the why behind earning and trying to grow this business to ultimately help others who are most in need. So it's just who I am, and try to practice that. It's also a habit that I've tried to build over the years of serving and giving back.
Gotcha. So I know passions for you are, your business and your family, but you also talked about basketball as well. And so let me ask you this, because you said one of the things you wanted to do was to be a D1 basketball coach, correct? Yeah,
D1 college hoops coach. And it could be D2 NAIA as well, or high school coach. But just coach basketball. It's again, back to encouraging and helping others and coaching others. I've always just liked doing that, and I think it's just part of my DNA.
Gotcha. What's your coaching style? Would it be like a Pop the Tactician? Would it be like the Zen Master Phil Jackson? Or is it kind of like that teacher like Coach K, if you will? What would be your coaching style?
I guess a mixture of three. I think the best coaches know how to be each. They're always themselves, but they know how to adapt to the players,
Absolutely.
And to coach each. It's like, kind of like being a parent, right? I have 5 kids.
Absolutely.
And they're literally all kind of like opposites, really just opposites in so many ways, and their own unique way. And so I think the best coaches are going to find out where the player's at and is going to push them to a part of being uncomfortable so that they're ultimately going to be better. But it's got to start with a place of love and humility and open communication. So, but if I had to choose one, it would be Coach K, because I'm a Duke fan, and
Absolutely.
I love Coach K and the way that he coaches his players and loves his players, but those other coaches are great too.
All right. About to ask you the hardest question on the show, man, even though I kind of get the idea based on what you said earlier, what the answer is. Pick one, MJ or LeBron?
Oh, MJ. It might be part of my, and by the way, I love LeBron. LeBron's my favorite player in the NBA, and he has been for years. Mm-hmm. I think he gets a bad rap. I can't wait to see what he does with AD next year on the Lakers.
For sure.
So, when Kyrie hit that shot against the Warriors, and by the way, I'm in Warrior territory here in Sacramento.
Wow.
I was one of the few people that was jumping up and down. I think a tear came in my eye. It was, I love hoops and I love LeBron. So that doesn't come easy. Okay.
Right.
But MJ just, it was art. It was magic. It was, and not Magic Johnson, but just the way he moved and shot the ball and his drive. And I just, love MJ too.
Absolutely. So appreciate you and indulge me in there a little bit. So Brett, I believe all entrepreneurs have a superpower. What's yours and why?
Oh gosh, a superpower. I'm a Christian, so the only superpower I really believe I have is through Jesus.
I hear that.
saving me and giving me the gifts I've given. I think one of those gifts he's given me is encouragement. You know what I mean? So I think the gift is to be able to inspire and encourage people, to push people too in a loving way.
For sure.
Because I can be pretty direct as well, but just inspire people to be more of who they were created to be.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for sharing that. So before I ask this last question, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the Startup Life podcast, powered by the Binge Podcast Network. You gave amazing value from the capital gains tax, how to navigate those waters, with the Deferred Sales Trust and what you do at capital gains tax solutions.com. Once again, that show note is there. That link is in the show notes for easy access, Startup Nation, for sure. And I really hope you really gathered some value, some very deep value-added content today for sure. But Brett, right now I want to pass the microphone over to you, man, because look, there's somebody in Startup Nation who they're on the ropes. They're thinking about quitting on their business because they feel stuck, or they're afraid to get started. And you are a master motivator, as you just said so yourself. So give them some words of encouragement today.
All right. So I would have them go to YouTube and have them type in honey badger. Okay. And that would be the first thing, right? And I would study the honey badger and the ability to be tenacious and to be hungry and to just want it more than anybody else. That's the first thing. But you also got to get a support team around you, right? And you've got to have I have so many people that have poured into me, mentors. At the time when I started my real estate career, the marketplace just dropped off like a cliff in 2008. And I was working, Cheesecake Factory by night, and I was working basketball camps on the weekends. And people were saying, "What are you doing? You got a wife at home with a baby on the way. Go get a real job." And I just said, you know what? I was created to do this. I'm going to figure out a way to do it. I kept my expenses low, and I just kept my focus on getting better every single day. So I would encourage you to keep your expenses low, because debt is not your friend. Have a support team around you that can encourage you. Focus on those 5 key areas of your life: your health, your finances, your spiritual walk, your friends and your family connections, your spouse if you're married, and then the leadership and personal development. You got to have a plan for these, and you got to focus on setting goals that are realistic, that are attainable, but also that are going to help you move forward every single day. So probably a lot of stuff they know, but get that support. Don't be solo on this journey, because it's tough to win when you're by yourself. But if you're on a team, you can succeed.
Thank you so much. And that's going to wrap up this session of the Startup Life podcast. Did you enjoy being on the show, Brett?
More than enjoyed. It was my pleasure, and I feel more energized now after speaking with you, and I can't wait to get to know you more over the years here, Dominic.
Sounds good. I appreciate that. All right, Startup Nation.
So here's my final take. When it comes to Brett and what he does at Capital Gains Tax Solutions, look, I get it. It was probably a lot to take in, but you need people like Brett to give you those advantages that you need on your path to entrepreneurship. And so when he talks about the capital gains tax and how to navigate that, and the deferred sales trust and how to navigate that, he really is just providing another avenue to provide you with that advantage to kind of lessen your tax burden, or to defer it, if you will. And look, we have links in the show notes for you to dive into it deeper, so that way you get a better understanding. But you can also just call Brett, because he is there more than willing to help you out. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline, or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog, where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the startup life.